Hey everyone, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. The annual tradition, Thanksgiving Eve for AEW Dynamite in Chicago. AEW fans were seemingly proud of 4,500 fans showing up in the arena being half full, but that's just part of the course for this company. Listen, like there's a lot of stuff that is problematic. I wouldn't say that this Dynamite was inherently terrible. It wasn't good, but I can't say it was worse than what I saw last week, which, as you go watch the video, it was the worst go home show I've ever seen in my life. The creative in the build to Full Gear was awful. Like, it was awful. There wasn't anything like inherently like god awful. There was a lot of things that I really questioned, and I have no idea the direction week to week with this show. But I'm not going to go as far as to say like that, going into a holiday that this was bad. But there was some weird stuff that went on in the show. Honestly, one of the best parts of this whole thing was this whole show. Hurt Syndicate comes out, cuts a pretty meaningful promo, really establishing themselves as like this, big time group after Bobby Lashley's win at the pay-per-view. And it feeds right into the first match in the Continental Classic between Mark Briscoe and Shelton Benjamin, which Shelton Benjamin wins. And Shelton Benjamin, I gotta tell you, man, for almost 50, man, the guy's in phenomenal shape. I understand why WWE didn't really have anything for him, but he is a phenomenal athlete, phenomenal talent. Let's see if he has a breakthrough opportunity here in this tournament to see if he can, push through and do some things that he wasn't able to do in WWE. And I do like the way that they're utilizing him. Yes, he's already eaten a pinfall, and he's probably going to be the designated pin guy if they do multi-man tags, because I don't think MVP is going to be able to work that much anymore. But MVP is a great mouthpiece. Lashley's in his element as a big-time massive heel. Shelton Benjamin's doing a really good job, and he's held his own in the ring in the brief amount of time that we've seen him there. And this was a fun match with him and Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe, this was a slugfest, and I love Mark Briscoe. I think he's awesome. He's a great wrestler. He's got great charisma. He's a very entertaining promo. But this was a solid way to start off the show. Then this show just kind of flatlined a little bit and was just kind of mediocre. The Mercedes Moné had a quick little segment on the stage where she kind of trolls the crowd, talks about her match with Chris Statlander, and then she pretty much, boasts about her being the greatest TBS champion of all time. She's about to fire Camille, can't even get the words out of her mouth. And then Camille, who we haven't really even heard talk at all, she's still in a sling, in a dress, and, she basically says, yeah, you can't fire her because she quits. And that was it. And the fans were chanting, you deserve it. So it got some sort of a reaction, because usually a lot of these quit angles get it. But my God, could this have been handled any worse? And I'm talking about like the Mercedes Moné thing to Camille being implemented as her bodyguard to now. Because Camille came in around, July, August. It's about 3.5 months that she has been with the company, officially, like at least on television. She's been signed since early this year. She's already broken off from Mercedes Moné, and she looks like the worst bodyguard in the history of professional wrestling. And now you want to branch her off as like, maybe we could throw her into like some sort of a feud with Mercedes Moné. But Mercedes is not going to lose the match. And so at this point, they were trying their best to maybe recreate a female version of Wardlow and MJF. It's not going to work. There's a lot of speculation that Mercedes could go get somebody else like a Megan Bayne, who's very good. But based off the fact that Camille, a very accomplished women's champion in NWA, I don't have a whole ton of optimism that they're going to go to another branch. At this point, like, they need to just hit a hard reset on this whole thing. This CEO gimmick is not working. They still have the piped-in CEO chants that nobody's doing. The fans are giving her go-away heat. Nobody cares. And the best thing that I could say about this segment was that it was short and sweet. It was short. They didn't have to subject us to just a painful Mercedes Moné segment promo. But this, I mean, they ripped the Band-Aid off with this whole, angle with Camille, but it doesn't do anybody any good because Camille's dead already. Like, she can go really nowhere. She's sunken. And for Mercedes, it's just like I said, she's the champion, but it doesn't do really anything good for her because she was trying to fire somebody and they quit on her. It's just, okay. It's just, it felt very forced. It felt very thrown together. It almost felt like they were like, yeah, this isn't working. We're ripping the Band-Aid off. And it felt that way for a while. It felt like they just ran out of ideas. And that's why Camille kept getting put in the worst possible positions. But this was really bad. It wasn't the worst segment of this, arc, like the 8-9 months that we've seen with Mercedes on television, but it wasn't good. But like I said, the best thing I could say about it is it was short and it was sweet. It was sweet. And we got, God forbid, I mean, I stand corrected. There's a Chris Jericho match on this show, so that was, and it just a bunch of chops, a bunch of suplexes. It's like, Tomohiro Ishii, I can respect him for being a guy in this business for a long time, but what does putting Chris Jericho in a Ring of Honor title match for 13 minutes on television do for anybody? What does it do for anybody? And I know people are trying to tie parallels. They had this match for the Ring of Honor Championship 2 years ago in the exact same setting. The only difference now, Chris Jericho's got a different character with the learning tree. We had to be subjected to Big Bill on commentary. It was like this was like I said, it wasn't like the work was okay, but it's like we don't need 13 minutes of Chris Jericho in a 2-hour show in 2024. We just don't. So Chris Jericho wins. He retains. I have no idea. I have no idea where they're gonna go with the Ring of Honor situation. They're going to Hammerstein Ballroom, which is very cool. But I have no idea what it even means for Ring of Honor. And frankly, if I'm booking that Ring of Honor show, Final Battle in Hammerstein Ballroom, the main event of that show, and I don't talk a ton of Ring of Honor, the main event of that show has to be Athena versus Billy Starks for the Women's Championship. That has to main event the show. That's the best story that they got going. They've hidden Athena away from everybody for 2 years, which doesn't make any sense because she's probably the best woman in that entire place, or one of, right up there with Toni Storm. Like, she belongs in the Women's Championship picture. Frankly, she should be going up against Mercedes Moné whenever she drops the Ring of Honor Championship. Like, I just... You can't have Chris Jericho main event that show. And my fear is that they may go back to Mark Briscoe. I'm not sure, but I have no idea why you need to put this on AEW television. And they went through this 2 years ago with Chris Jericho trying to be the Ring of Honor champion. They wanted to get a television deal, and it didn't work out. Nobody cares about Ring of Honor anymore. Tony Khan bought it. It's a dead promotion. So why even subject it to television? There was an interesting backstage spot where Renee is interviewing Swerve Strickland. Max Caster walks by, starts laughing. Swerve gets into it with him. Caster brings up that, hey, I beat you in the Prudential Center a couple years ago for the championships, with the tag team championships. And so then Swerve just beats the shit out of Caster, throws him into a wall, throws him into a bunch of production crates. And it's sort of leading down this path that Max Caster is going to turn heel. Interesting that Anthony Bowens was nowhere to be found in this whole thing, seemingly to plant some more dissension. I'm sure that, I'm not optimistic considering the inconsistencies in storylines, but it seems like we're heading towards a split with the Acclaimed. I said it before. I'm actually fine with that. Yes, there's a shortage of tag teams in AEW, but the Acclaimed's got nothing left on them. The novelty of that group is gone. With Daddy Ass and the raps and everything. It's time for them to split these two off. Max Caster seems to be hinting at going into the Hurt Syndicate, which would, make some sense. It wouldn't really do, I don't know what good it would do for him. It would maybe take some of the pressure off of having to pin Shelton Benjamin, because I think Shelton Benjamin's really good and has actually done a really good job in his role since he got there. I just want to see Anthony Bowens do really well. He's been Like if you watch him in the ring, he's phenomenal. So I hope that if they do break this off, and hopefully that leads to something, he can go out and thrive and potentially be in the mix to go after, like, one of these other championships, international, TNT, whatever. It doesn't matter. I want to see Anthony Bowens do well. And it's amazing because, like, in the draw for the Acclaimed early on, Max Caster was really the draw to this thing. But he's become increasingly more unlikable. He's gotten himself into trouble with a bunch of raps. The fans don't like him. He's gotten himself into a lot of trouble with his mouth on the internet. And, and Bowens is a very likable guy, very good worker. Obviously, the whole story behind him being an openly gay superstar with the famed he's gay segment that they had, which was a god-awful segment, but it got that great moment with him last year. But that's where the real takeaway. I like the aggression from Swerve after taking another loss. See how he rebounds off of that. So that was interesting and kind of well done. Another really solid thing on this show that kind of went sideways after the fact. Hangman Page gets a promo, and basically the questions are asked, why was Hangman even near the main event after? And he was basically like, yeah, I made a deal with Christian, and I would have been the world champion if he would have done his job. And basically it leads to Switchblade Jay White coming out saying, hey, you seem to have forgotten I've beaten you the last 2 times we faced each other. And really one way this sort of leads everything to the Death Rider showing up. Pac gets up. He takes out Switchblade. There's stuff going on all over the place where you have Switchblade getting into it with Wheeler Yuta. It leads to a match between the two. Actually, Wheeler Yuta is going to face Hangman on. He's going to face Hangman on Collision, which is interestingly, and they're having. Oh yeah, we're having an earlier Collision. Yeah, you guys don't want to go up head to head against Survivor Series. Let's just call it what it is. So the best thing about this segment was Marina Shafir comes in. She uses the briefcase. She tries to get in on Jay White. Jay White teases hitting the Blade Runner. That got a huge reaction from the crowd because fans really want to see men on women violence. But then it leads to Marina Shafir getting her submission on Jay White. And the Death Rider stand tall. John Moxley was involved in this. It's clearly leading to something, maybe some sort of a triple threat. Or three-way, they call it triple threat WWE between Jay White, Hangman, and John Moxley for the World Championship. That probably seems like the direction of where they're going for World's End. Listen, listen. The explanation from Hangman and anything, and literally anything Hangman has done, and also I've loved what they've done with Jay White. I just don't like that they paired these two guys together, and had Hangman take 2 straight losses. But I love the explanation from Hangman of why he was involved. It actually made sense, which is very few and far between for some of these logic gaps that exist within AEW. But I like that Marina Shafir's looking like a strong woman in this whole thing. But this Death Riders thing just ain't it, man. Just ain't it, man. Like there's no rhyme or reason for they speak in riddles. They just come in and beat people up. They just attack people. You have no idea what's going through the mind of Wheeler Yuta and all this stuff, and we don't really care. And then the biggest insult, and I know, and nobody's talking about this. Nobody is talking about this, but I'm gonna say it. I've kind of casually mentioned it, over the last handful of weeks in my Full Gear reaction. The fact that the World Championship is being held in a briefcase and not being visible to the viewing audience is an insult. Is an insult to the world title. Like, the fact that the fans can't see the world title and it's being held hostage, and some of you marks will come at me, well, that's the gift. It's like, no. The World Championship is a big prize in any company. You should not be holding that in a goddamn briefcase, and we haven't seen that title since John Moxley won it at Wrestle Dream. It didn't even come out of the briefcase for the title match at the pay-per-view Full Gear. What are we doing? That is an insult. I don't know whose idea that was. That is a terrible idea. The World Championship is a prize. And to throw that in a briefcase and just have it not be displayed. Like Orange Cassidy put it in his backpack, but at least he took it out. This is ridiculous. And it's really insulting that nobody is talking about how stupid that is. That is dumb. If you're trying to build a legacy of a championship, and I understand I shit on AEW, but if you're trying to establish lineage and prestige to the championship, you want that thing to be seen on a week-to-week basis. And when your world champion isn't even displaying that and is throwing it in a briefcase, and it's being used the briefcase is being used as a weapon to hit people, you can't even show the world championship? What are we doing? So dumb. Drives me crazy. This Death Riders thing is just not it. It leads into a Claudio Ricochet match. Claudio wins. Fine match, but my big takeaway from this, Ricochet has been there he's been there 3 months now. They've blown through his best match. They're going to by the way, they're going to blow through it again because Continental Classic, Ricochet and Ospreay are in the same league. So, yeah, we're blowing through that match twice in 3 months when you could have built to that somewhere. Like, that's the thing I don't like about this Continental Classic. You're stacking wrestlers. And one of the other matches that really drove me crazy, Kazuchika Okada is going to face Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia just won the TNT Championship. In his first match, he is going in a champion versus champion match against Kazuchika Okada. That doesn't make an ounce of sense. Like, at least delay that. You're going up against another champion right out of the gate in this tournament. And also, why is Daniel Garcia in this tournament? He's the champion. He's the damn champion. Why is he in this tournament? But back to Ricochet. I've said this. Ricochet's been there for 3 months. Ricochet's in maybe a worse position than he was in WWE because all he's doing is working matches. There's no character development. There's nothing here. He's basically the same version of himself. It's just like, hey, he's not being exposed in WWE where there's more emphasis on character. He may fit better in this place, but he's in no better position. He's not going to be a world champion. He's not going to win this tournament, the Continental Classic, and he eats a loss right after he took a loss on pay-per-view. Great job. Another just, fumbled opportunity here with AEW. Kyle Fletcher and Don Callis. Kyle Fletcher's in this tournament. He faces the Beast Mortos. Okay. I do like that they gave Fletcher the win on Saturday at Full Gear. We'll see if this tournament is used as a vehicle to get to Fletcher Ospreay again. The format's a little bit different this year, where you're going to have the runner-up and the winners of the respective leagues facing off each other, and then it will lead to lead to two matches for whoever win. It's basically the semifinals and the final will take place at World's End. Adam Cole gets a promo. This sort of feeds into the rest of his feud with MJF. Kyle O'Reilly then comes out basically saying he wants to fight MJF. MJF once again is not there. And he basically says, yeah, I don't want to face either one of you guys. I'm worried about the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal because it's that time of year where MJF's got to defend his Dynamite Diamond Ring. So that's the vehicle that we're going to use for that's the vehicle that we're going to use for MJF this year and for MJF Adam Cole. I don't know if that's the match that we're going to get or if it's going to be MJF Kyle O'Reilly for the Diamond Ring, and then we get so one way or another, it's going to lead to World's End where Adam Cole and MJF face each other. But MJF's mailing it in. He did some good work with the Ospreay thing. I thought it was a little bit, too formulaic in terms of, but ever since he got out of that feud with Ospreay, he gets to the Daniel Garcia match. But since he came back at WrestleDream and has been reinserted into this feud with Adam Cole, it has been like he's not there. He's filming vignettes. I understand he's got other responsibilities in acting, but it feels like MJF has taken his money and run away. And it's just, I don't care. I got my bag. I'm fine. Let's move on. Not a lot of people talk about this, but if you look back at things in retrospect, looking back to 2023 when there was some uncertainty that MJF would resign. You look back at that title reign, which is the longest title reign in the history of AEW, you can make the argument it's one of the worst if you look back in hindsight of what it all led to. The crappy end of it at World's End, this arc with Adam Cole that has made no sense. It's been derailed by injuries, but it's still made no sense. And the fact that they continue to go back to it despite the logic gaps makes no sense. So it's, the Kingdom's involved in this, like Roderick Strong, like I like these. I like all the particular participants involved in this thing, but it just feels like MJF's not trying. It feels like Adam Cole is trying his damnedest to make this work, but nobody cares because he's been injured all the fucking time. Nobody cares about the Kingdom. No, and people like Roderick Strong, but he's been disposed of, so it just doesn't. It doesn't really do anything. So, so then so that's the interesting part of this. I don't understand why this is still going on. It's bizarre. So then Jamie Hayter faces Queen Aminata. They're doing a individual tournaments for a 4-way for the International Women's Cup at Wrestle Dynasty in the Tokyo Dome. It's basically the Japanese version of Forbidden Door. So Jamie Hayter faces Queen Aminata in this match. They're going to get and Jamie Hayter wins this match. Jamie's going to get the winner of Serena Deeb and Willow Nightingale. And then the winner of that match is going to advance and represent AEW in this International Women's Cup over in Japan in January. Hard-hitting match. Jamie Hayter's awesome. They haven't really done a whole hell of a lot for her, but she wins this match. Queen Aminata is actually pretty impressive. They've given her a showcase. It's not very easy to get invested in her just because, like, we don't know anything about her. We don't know anything about her. She just wrestles. Like, she's good, but, like, we don't know anything about her. So there's not any, and that's the problem with AEW is there's not a whole lot of characters. So when they go out to wrestle, there's no reason to react to them because we don't care about who they are. Julia Hart, the lights go out. There's speculation that Julia Hart's going to do something with Jamie Hayter. There's a decent chance that Julia Hart might cost Jamie Hayter the match. I would presume that she's facing Willow in that final match, which is going to be in a couple weeks, I think, down the road. I think they said it's going to be at Winter is Coming, which is in the middle of December. So we'll see. They've been really hyping up Julia's return. The vignettes that they've done have been really interesting. And, this intrigue behind it has been well done. Speaking of the women, we get Mina Shirakawa getting interviewed by Renee Paquette. And they asked the question, okay, what happened at Full Gear where Mariah tried to swing at you? Did you expect it coming? And she did. She was like, yeah, I always knew that she was selfish. And like, I kind of saw what she did to Tony Storm in the past. And so, as this interview's wrapping up, Mariah May hits her in the back with a champagne bottle. And she says, I want Mina. And they announce Mariah versus Mina, women's championship. Winter is coming in 2 weeks. Somebody said this online. I would prefer it if it didn't seem so formulaic that when they do these vignettes, you'd rather have the talent sort of ask for the match, say, hey, I want you at Winter is Coming, rather than, just kind of cartoonishly throwing up a graphic like you have it ready. Like, that's something that's just like, basic wrestling things. It just seems very cartoony, and they do this a lot in AEW. It's very odd. Then like I said, Okada, Daniel Garcia, like I said, I have no idea why they're doing that match this early in the Classic. I have no idea why Daniel Garcia is in the match. So they announced that for Collision. Main event of the show, Darby Allin versus Brody King. They faced each other a lot. They've had some good matches, but man, it's hard for me to care. And so, yeah, this match was pretty quick. There was a spot before in the commercial break where Brody King went for a cannonball senton into the barricade that knocked out the audio, and you could not hear commentary for basically about 2 minutes. So that was kind of a debacle in its own right. But yeah, Brody King wins clean over Darby Allin. Mind you, Darby Allin was the last image that we saw on pay-per-view, and they even showed this in the beginning of the show, like a post stuff of him yelling at a production crew saying, "Yeah, we've got to stop him." Like adapt. It was like almost like an adapt or die type thing, and so Darby Allin gets into a freaking car accident, which is reckless in its own right. Having one of your own talent drive a car and ram it at high speed into another vehicle is insane in its own right. Then having him wrestle a match a couple days later feels ridiculous. But then they seem to be framing Darby Allin, since WrestleDream, they seem to be framing Darby Allin as the main, protagonist in this whole thing versus the Death Riders. The main guy who you seemingly think is going to be the guy to beat Jon Moxley. But how does that make any sense when in the last 2 weeks he has gotten squashed by Claudio and he has gotten beaten handily by Brody King? What good does that do? Like, is there, maybe there's a long-term payoff here, but having Darby Allin take more and more losses and just get his ass kicked, like, that's not the way to build up a big-time protagonist and a big-time hero in your story, which, by the way, I don't know if I can really buy into Darby Allin as a world champion to begin with. He is a fucking daredevil, but he's also 165, 170 pounds soaking wet, and his main calling card is he does stupid shit which could almost kill him. So, I don't know, man. Like, a lot of the significant matches that he has had this year, he's lost. He's lost. So how am I supposed to take him seriously? And you have this go on in the main event, first match in the Continental Classic. Why is Darby in the Continental Classic is the first thing. Secondly, like, back-to-back weeks he's taking clean pinfall losses. And by the way, getting his ass handed to him. And I understand that's part of Darby's gimmick, is that he's a small guy who fights his ass off, but routinely takes a lot of punishment. But normally he fights back. But to have this happen in back-to-back weeks is kind of ridiculous. I did like that, Brody King showed some solidarity. It led to, setting up Brody King versus Claudio in this tournament. So that sets up a big match. Those two guys got points on this night. But yeah, like I said, nothing really, like, outside of maybe Jericho and some stuff that I have questions about, and the Death Riders thing isn't it. This wasn't like the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's still a microcosm of what is wrong with this company. They are settling. They are content. They are not trying to do anything different. And the stuff that they're doing is not registering, and it's not gaining any reactions from the fans. Nobody gives a shit, and it's a problem when you're trying to convince these people, these audience members, especially your diehards, to stay interested in this product. And the Continental Classic will, kind of reinstill a lot of what AEW represents, which is wrestling. And that's fine. But there's no storylines really playing out. There's really no overriding storylines playing out through a lot of this. And then your main angle, your top protagonist, is getting his ass kicked. And then the big time world champion heel doesn't bother to show the world championship in public. Like, it's just a bizarre set of circumstances that are going on, and a lot of the rest of the card that's being set up is not very good either. Like, you got a bizarre feud with MJF and Adam Cole that's still continuing for reasons I don't understand. The best thing that I can say is the stuff going on with the Hurt Syndicate and, the follow-up with Swerve was actually really well done. And seeing Shelton Benjamin get a chance to shine is really cool. So that's my thoughts on AEW. We'll see how the ratings stack up with them in NXT later on in the week. We'll have a Survivor Series preview show later on as well. Go watch my video about... I actually think that card's fine. I think it's well positioned, well paced. So we'll see how that show goes on Saturday. But anyway, I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.